So this month's discussion is about redefining success. So it starts with, as Christians, all the things that we've talked about of what keeps Christians from being bold. But let's talk a little bit about when Christians are bold and then they kind of lose steam. So, for example, they start out solid, they're trying to accomplish something, and then they maybe kind of stop. Either their motivation kind of peters out, or they find that it's a long haul and they have other things to do and other things get in the way, kids or whatnot, or maybe they lost motivation for some reason. And I want to talk a little bit about things like that. And I think kind of what it comes down to is people don't always realize how much work is involved with being a Christian. I mean, if you think about it, once you decide to live boldly, it's a lot of work all the time. You have to, I mean, you start getting politically active. You start getting into those difficult conversations. You are constantly doing research to make sure that you can justify why your beliefs are the truth, even when they go against everything society is preaching right now. And I think it's kind of like when people choose to become Christian, especially converts. There are a lot of people out there who believe in God. But when it comes to being Christian, they don't want to commit to that because they know it's not just about believing in Christ. It's about accepting an entirely new way of life, a whole moral code that your actions now have to go by a set of standards, and you're held accountable when you don't follow those standards. And even more than that, it's a package deal. You don't get to pick and choose what you want to follow or believe in and what you don't. It's all about the moral value, the moral teachings of Christ. So a lot of people just kind of shy away from it because it's a lot of work. And I think there's a reason why sloth is it's one of the deadly sins, is because the devil himself knows that laziness can get you off track real quick from becoming a bold Christian. It's a lot of work. Absolutely rewarding, of course, but still a lot of work. And as humans, when we work hard on something, our nature is that we want to see results. And that just makes sense because if you spend months building a house, you want to see a house when you're done, a nice one. If you're spending years trying to solve a crime, you want to catch the criminals at the end and hold them accountable. That feeling of accomplishment after working very hard at something, you want to see a result for that, and that accomplishing that feeling that you get is what motivates you to begin that next big task. So, but what happens when we apply that human nature to doing the work of God? Well, I think it can unfortunately lead us astray a little bit because we start setting these objectives and then we find that we can't always achieve them, and then people tend to lose motivation. I mean, think of it this way: have you ever tried very, very hard to share God's love with someone who's just going down a really hard path in life? And despite your best efforts, their free will kicks in and they choose not to believe in Him, and you feel like you failed. Or if you've worked really hard to maybe get a candidate elected who you know was a solid Christian and would bring Christ's values to that political office, and despite your hard work and your best efforts and your righteous intentions, their opponent gets elected who does not represent the values of Christ. I mean, it's hard not to feel disappointed and lose motivation because your objectives were not achieved in the sense that our human nature thinks they should be. So the question is this: how, as bold Christians, do we keep our motivation even when our objectives don't seem to be being accomplished? And I think the answer I propose to you is this: it's to humble yourself and have faith. Humble yourself to accepting the fact that your objectives may not be God's objectives, and have faith that your results, whatever they may be, even if they look like failures to you, are actually furthering the will of God. And I'm just going to tell you a personal example of this, and having to kind of get my mindset on track in this way was when I was working in my daughter's school trying to get some of the books out of the library that really just should not have been there, were very inappropriate. And I remember I prepared a whole speech and did lots of research, a really great presentation. I went and I gave it and asked them to remove the book for all the reasons that I had. And afterwards, I got a letter from them that basically said, well, the book's staying because it's gotten lots of awards from all these groups. Well, I mean, I didn't care that I got awards from the groups because the groups were of the same mind as the school and in what they thought was okay for kids, and obviously differed from my opinion as a parent. And so I was very frustrated because I felt like I had failed. But fast forward a year later, and our efforts are now at a county level that we're trying to accomplish things, and we're working at a state level to fix the laws. And looking back, I realized that that failure motivated me to keep pushing it up the chain of the school and keep fighting it. And the more I fought it, the more I realized what a larger problem it was. And so looking back now, I realized that if I had been successful at that level, it would have stopped there. And really, I think God has something bigger, and that's a great thing. So just, I think we got to put it in perspective that just because it's not the objectives that we would like, we're not always able to see that bigger picture. So if we adjust our mindsets and kind of put that human nature mindset on hold for a while, I think we can refocus on what a reasonable objective would be. And when we're fighting those battles as Christians, I think we can always accomplish one thing. If our goal is to be workers for Christ, then we can always accomplish that. It's not about the results, it's about being workers for Christ, participating in a larger battle of good versus evil that we may never understand because it is so much bigger than we are. And in fact, we may not win this battle here on earth. Revelations, I think, kind of tells us that we will lose the battle on earth to win the greater battle of heaven eternal. So this is just, it's a larger effort, and our job is to be workers for Christ and have faith that whatever we do accomplish or not accomplish is still serving his bigger picture. And we can trust that and find motivation in doing just that. So I'll leave you with this. If you can just remember, do the work, leave the results to God, and worship while you wait, and love God and his people every step of the way. So the discussion questions I post to you this month are, when is the time that you felt like your hard work as a Christian did not pay off and you started to lose motivation? And if you were to readjust your mindset into being a worker for Christ and being fulfilled as a worker for Christ, could that have helped you maybe get through that situation a little bit better? So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next month.